Hi everybody, welcome to my latest video clip on making shortcrust pastry today. It's Chef Archie Pie, and I've been making shortcrust pastry for probably the best part of almost 40 years now. And I've been making pies for 40 years. I'm rather renowned for my pies. Over the years, when I had my restaurant, I used to sell hundreds of these pies, and then I started making them for customers who wanted to fill their freezers full of my pies. So these days I just make pies for my family, and my pastry is still up to scratch. I can say I clearly haven't lost my ability to produce a decent pastry. So I thought it's time I passed it on to my friends. I've had so much pressure from my Twitter friends that I'm going to finally reveal how to make the pastry, and I'm going to rub the fat into the flour by hand. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to the ingredients for this perfect all-purpose shortcrust pastry. We will be needing 300 grams, around 12 ounces of plain flour, which we're going to sieve, and we'll need 150 grams, around 6 ounces of fat, made up of 3 ounces of butter and 3 ounces of lard. I'm using pork lard because it's what's available in my local store. We'll also need a pinch of salt, and we'll need some as cold as possible, water. So let's crack on, shall we? Let's weigh those ingredients, get ready to make our perfect shortcrust pastry. So in my plastic bowl I've got 12 ounces of flour, and I'm going to add just a pinch of salt. It doesn't need a great deal, probably about 1/4 teaspoon for 12 ounces of flour. And then I'm going to add my fat. This is 6 ounces of fat, and what I've done at room temperature, I've mixed them together with a fork. I've mashed them together. You don't have to do this. You can cut them into fine dice or cut them into slices, or some people grate them out of the fridge. I like to mash my room temperature fats together, and then I like to add them to the flour. And obviously, once they're added, we're then going to get our hands in there and mix them in. So let's get all the fat into the flour, and once it's in, we can then start to rub the fat into the flour. And this is the technique that's essential, possibly the most important aspect next to getting the measurements right, is the technique you use to rub your fat into the flour. So in with the hands. We're basically trying to move everything around now. If you were making this with a food processor, you'd be using a paddle. So what I'm looking to do now is to use my fingertips to break down the fat, get it incorporated into the flour. Now, the more you use your fingertips, the more you will feel the lumps will be breaking down, and very slowly the texture will change appearance in colour, obviously because we're using butter, and the whole feel will change too. It will take on a texture of breadcrumbs, and the lumps will eventually, after you've rubbed in the fat into the flour, the lumps will become finer. So our end game here is an appearance of breadcrumbs. You may end up with a few outstanding lumps, in which case you can always throw in an extra tablespoon of flour just to help those outstanding lumps break down. If you can see what I'm doing, I'm using my fingertips, and the fingertips are constantly moving round, almost as I said before, like a food mixer. My hands are acting like a couple of paddles, and my fingers are breaking the fat into the flour. Now I'm bringing the texture up to the camera for you to see, and as you can see, it's completely changing colour and appearance, and we've achieved that fantastic breadcrumb texture before we add our water. Okay, so the rubbing stage is now complete, and now we're going to add some very, very cold water, as cold as possible. About 3 fluid ounces, 6 tablespoons, or 90 millilitres. I'm using my one hand. Initially I'm mixing it, but as you go along, you will feel the lumps starting to form, big lumps of pastry, obviously our fat and our flour all together. Now we're getting the end product, and we're looking to shape all those little tiny bits into one big ball of pastry dough. Here we are. Beautiful. It's coming together a treat. And right at the end, I love to do this thing where you wipe the bowl out with the pastry to get every last morsel into your pastry ball. And there you have it. One piece of pastry weighing around 550 grams, which is about 20 ounces in total. And what I'm doing here, I'm showing you the wonderful cake-like texture. That's what we call short. A lovely texture known as short. And that beautiful texture, not too wet, not too dry. It's going to roll out rather nice, but that's that gorgeous cakey-like texture. So when you open it up, it looks just like a piece of cake. So when you've cooked this pastry for whatever you're making, your end texture is going to be slightly crumbly, slightly flaky. So I'm going to roll out a piece now just to demonstrate to you how reasonably easy it is. I like to roll a couple of times and move the pastry around, obviously constantly giving it just a tiny bit of flour here and there. We don't want to overflour the situation, but just roll it out. So there we are. I'm not going to get into rolling today. That's for another day. Rolling techniques, I will do another video for another day. Let me just say thanks for watching my pastry tutorial video clip. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, sharing or liking, or even pressing the notification bell for my next video, I'd be very grateful. This is Chef Archie Pie saying happy baking, happy pie making, sending you all lots of love. Do take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.